Blackhawks fans, welcome in to another edition of the Four Feathers Podcast. Season 7, Episode 2 comes to you live on Hockey Eve. We get to watch real hockey that means something on Tuesday. I am Ron Luce, or GM Ron, depending on who you ask. I'm joined tonight by Tony Marchese and Steve Kwiatkowski. Gentlemen, hello. It's been a hot minute, but we have things to discuss as the hockey season gets ready to start. How are you guys?
Doing fantastic, Ronald. It is almost another hockey season here, as you mentioned, Hockey Eve. Very excited. I'm also cracking them with you here, Ronald. What are you drinking there? What you got there?
Made a little mixy mix. And it's in my Bucky's tie-dye glass because I'm excited and want to have fun on this show talking about Blackhawks hockey.
And as Stolip Breezen came in here and said, hockey season to ease the Cubs' pain. I don't want to steal the moment here. There's a lot of baseball left to be played on the north side. If you're joining us right now and not watching the Chicago Cubs game, either you're all in on hockey or a White Sox fan, or maybe you're a Cubs fan and need to get away. It's not good over there for your north siders, Ronald. Not good right now.
Yes, thank you for rubbing that in. I know you're enjoying it more than you will admit on this microphone, but
I am enjoying it wholeheartedly. I'm sorry, Cubs on Tap guys. They're going to be live later tonight on these airwaves as well. So if you need some Cubs talk to wind the night down, give them a listen tonight. Ron, I'm sorry, but I am enjoying it. Steve, I know you're probably enjoying it too. How are you doing tonight, man?
I'm doing good, and even though I'm a White Sox fan, I'm going to have to disagree with you there, Tony, just because anytime there's a Chicago team in the playoffs, unless the Sox and the Cubs are in at the same time, I'm going to root for Chicago. So I feel the pain a little bit, but
you know what he is, Tony? He's sensible because only White Sox fans hate another team in their own city more than they like their own team.
What are you talking about? Your own fan base?
Your own fan base.
I don't know. I saw some stuff on X this week. It was kind of wild. Cubs fans out there getting mad that White Sox fans were rooting for Brewers fans as if, that's something that's sacrilegious. I don't know. I'm just reporting the news here, Ron. I just didn't think that these fan bases were supposed to like each other. But I mean, Steve, it's okay if you're bisexual. I get it.
No, man, I'm a Chicago fan. I hate the Cubs during the regular season. The Sox, I haven't seen them in a postseason in a long time. But if the Cubs are in the playoffs, I'm not going to root against. Especially, I'm never going to root for a Wisconsin team, unlike some people on this show.
Yeah, call them out, Steve. Put them on the blast.
I can never root for anything Wisconsin. Not even Culver's.
Wow, that's cold. Culver's is good. I enjoy some Culver's.
It is actually good. I take that back.
See, there are things about Wisconsin you can like here, but this is not a baseball show. It's not a football show. This is a hockey show, and we've got hockey to talk about. Ronald,
yes,
you're the leader of the pack here tonight. So why don't you just give us a little rundown? What do we got to talk about tonight?
Of course, sir. We're gonna get into all of it. As always, we appreciate everybody joining us. We had to go down a little bit of a rabbit hole there to get things started before the night kicks off, because we are here to talk about hockey, and all three of us are immensely excited about the season beginning. The Blackhawks didn't do a ton in the off season, as we've already gotten some comments noting from friend of Cubs on Tap, Mr. Brandon B. He says they did nothing during this offseason. They did less than expected, but we're going to get into all of it. We've got observations from the preseason. We have predictions for the upcoming season and so much more that we're going to get into here on this episode. So thanks for joining in on Tap Sports and on YouTube at Four Feathers Pod is where you can find us on socials. And of course, you can always listen to us wherever you get your favorite podcast as well. Gentlemen, to start things off, because it is Hockey Eve, the Blackhawks play a hockey game on Tuesday. They needed to announce an official roster. They did that today. The Blackhawks on X and of course, through a press release, announced the 2025-26 opening night roster. Just a quick rundown here before we get into discussing points. Your forwards are Connor Bedard, Tyler Bertuzzi, Burakovsky, Doc Dickinson, Donato, Foligno, Green, Lafferty, Mikheyev, Nazar, Reichel, and Teravainen. Your defensemen, Crevier, Del Mastro, Grzelcyk, Kaiser, Levshinov, Murphy, Renzel, and Vlasic. And your goaltenders, Spencer Knight and Arvid Soderblom. Some notable keeps. Ryan Green is on the roster. That probably largely due to Landon Slaggert beginning the season on the injured reserve. Colton Dock is a notable keep here. He had a great preseason. Lucas Reichel, which I know is going to be a discussion topic for us this evening. And Ethan Del Mastro, and I believe that one largely is due to Alex Vlasic not being ready due to the cut that he suffered on his leg during the preseason games. Notable demotion, probably the biggest one, is Oliver Moore, which will be another talking point of ours this evening. So, gentlemen, I turn the floor back to you guys. What stood out most about the roster that has been decided? We are going to talk about some preseason observations here in a little bit as well, but maybe those are some of the things that stuck out to you the most. What say you about the Blackhawks opening night roster for the 25-26 season?
For, I guess, what stood out the most is the Matt Grzelcyk signing. Not the signing itself, I guess, but the fact that he's taken, at least as of today's practice, he's on the top pairing with Renzel. I got some thoughts about that. Oliver Moore is a notable roster change, I guess, because, I mean, he's not on the roster, but some people may have thought that he would have started the season with the Blackhawks. I personally thought that Moore didn't really prove that he had the vision that was ready for the NHL. To me personally, at least, I thought he just looked like a really fast dude, and that was the only thing that stood out to me. I thought his goal was great, but I did notice that he forced a lot of passes that didn't go to anybody, and he didn't elect to make some passes. And especially for a player like him, where he's on the rush, like, you'd want him to be able to know if there's another teammate that he can pass to. And of course, you know, you take into account of like chemistry and things like that, but I do think that's more of like a vision type thing. And then Ryan Green kind of getting the call up. Obviously, it's because of Slaggert being on IR, but he's really good at faceoff, so it'll be interesting to see how he plays tomorrow. I don't want to say maybe it's like a second chance, but he gets to prove himself. I think once Slager's back, though, he's going back to Rockford, unless he proves otherwise. And I don't want to get too down the rabbit hole here, but like I wonder if Ryan Green, if he somehow does look really good, I wonder what would happen if like a player like Sam Lafferty, if Lafferty doesn't look good at all, would Kyle Davidson have the balls to put him on waivers to go down to Rockford? I don't think so, because he's a veteran player, and I do think that they're going to kind of keep him on the Blackhawks. And I also don't think that Lafferty is going to play himself out of a NHL spot. But yeah, and then Lucas Reichel too. We'll talk more about him, but he's not too surprising to me, to be honest. But yeah, those are kind of my thoughts on the roster for tomorrow.
I mean, for me, not to discount anything that Steve said on his evaluations of Oliver Moore, but the major storyline, in my opinion, is Oliver Moore going back down to Rockford. A lot of guys that cover the team, not only, within Blackhawks X, but elsewhere, sort of looked at that as a bit of a surprise, given the speed, given what he showed towards the end of last season. I think that there's some benefit, and Ron, I know we talked about this the other day, and you said that Rockford would be good for an Oliver Moore. I don't think that there's a guy that's ever come through this organization since we've been covering this Chicago Blackhawks team, outside of maybe Connor Bedard, that you haven't said that Rockford would be a good spot for them to develop in. So I just thought that, again, and we talked about this last year with Kevin Korchinski, obviously a smaller sample size for Oliver Moore than what Korchinski got in his first season. But it's, what level talent do you have? And guys like Sam Rinzel, I think you can make the argument. These are both first round picks for the Chicago Blackhawks and Oliver Moore. Granted, it came behind Connor Bedard in that draft. But Sam Rinzel is a guy that comes straight from college, making that jump and has shown that he can play in the NHL, at least to the Blackhawks coaching staff. Oliver Moore, somewhat similarly, made that jump at the end of last year. There was a couple of guys that did that, but to have him go back down to Rockford, at least to me, and not making the camp out of team says that there's question marks about his game, at least to this Blackhawks coaching staff. And I don't want that to be a common theme all the time. I know that there's reasoning and why, Ron, you'll probably talk me off the ledge here. And Steve, you agreed that there were question marks there as well. But at some point, if everybody's got to take a step back and reevaluate where they're at, and again, smaller sample size, but we're seeing it play out with Kevin Korchinski, another name going back to Rockford this year for the Blackhawks instead of starting with the NHL club. I know there were some rule things, and I don't want to get into all the intricacies here. But are these guys not developing at the rate that you'd want them to? Obviously, I'm putting that up against Sam Rinzel and looking in my mind and saying, why couldn't Oliver Moore make the team out of camp in a position that should, as we've talked about on this show, Ron, should take a lot less time to develop in than a defenseman. So is Sam Rinzel just that good? Maybe, and that's why it's setting a different standard in my mind. But I would like to see a little more youth. I know, Steve, you just brought up, do they have the balls to put Lafferty on waivers to go back down to Rockford? Oliver Moore, if he's the first call up, who's going down? Is it Ryan Green for Oliver Moore? If we want to get into these things, I just thought that Oliver Moore in camp, at least to my eye test, looked good enough to make this team out of camp. And that one is the most notable thing that I noticed.
I definitely agree in the sense that Oliver Moore's demotion was the most notable because I do think it's probably the biggest talking point of the roster. Gentlemen, looking at this, we add that Grzelcyk officially signed a 1-year, $1 million deal with the Blackhawks. I don't think anybody's surprised by that. Rod Luce let everybody know, don't be sour when he takes somebody's spot. He did. It was Kevin Korchinski's effectively on this roster as he goes back down to Rockford to continue developing. But I really look at everything right now with Oliver Moore, and I say this, and I think this is why it's fascinating. I'm not going to take the side of either one of you, actually. I'm going to look at this more from I'm going to beg a question of how this is being treated. Steve, you say that Oliver Moore's, there's some vision things there, et cetera, for him that he needs to really work on. Tony, you say, but that speed, that you can use the speed. I think the answer to the Oliver Moore demotion lies somewhere in between that. And what I mean by that is, I think the Blackhawks are trying to figure out what Oliver Moore is at the NHL level. Are you going to wholesale develop him into a really good middle to bottom six forward who is fast, could kill penalties, does provide some secondary scoring, but could be an elite two-way player and really change the game in that aspect of pressure and things like that? Or is he a top six player that you're expecting to become a scorer with that speed and with that potential need to develop vision? Because now he goes to Rockford. He's going to play what you would consider top 6 minutes, right? Obviously at an AHL level, but still top 6 minutes. Are they going to try and figure out what Oliver Moore's role is for the next Blackhawks? Because I think in Sam Rinzel's case, Tony, to your point, he showed I can play the big minutes. I might fuck up, but I'll make up for it later. You can put him into that. Well, we need a workhorse. Seth Jones is gone. That's going to be Sam Rinzel this year, unless he really fucks it up otherwise and needs to go to Rockford. I don't think Oliver Moore is in that position of where they totally know what he is yet at the NHL level. And I think that's why he might be going down right now, because they're going to kind of tinker with that now that he's in the system and signed after obviously coming over from Minnesota a year ago.
And there's two trains of thought running through my mind with this. And I agree with you. Maybe they don't know what Oliver Moore is going to be at the NHL level right now. But at some point, you have to be critical of what the front office is doing with this. And again, we talk about the patience level of Chicago Blackhawks fans. I'm not trying to make this a bigger deal, but it feels like another goalpost move. The same way that you move the goalposts with Korchinski, and the same way that you move the goalposts from we want to take another step in this rebuild from out of Kyle Davidson's mouth last year to this year. Okay, we've got time to evaluate. Which is it? Do you want to take another step up, or are you telling fans temper expectations for another full year? And so that fits in the larger theme. If you've got your core group of guys that are all starting to amass and be just on the verge of NHL talent, look at what happened with Lucas Reichel. I also want to add in the fact that we had reports that Lucas Reichel was going to be traded before the first game of the season. That's a roster spot right now, and he's not even in the lineup. So you're carrying an extra guy that obviously has fallen out of favor with the front office. And is that the reason that Oliver Moore doesn't make the team?
So I definitely see where your concern is regarding the goalposts and Kyle Davidson maybe saying one thing and then the actions looking a little different. For Oliver Moore specifically, I don't think that necessarily applies just because like I do agree with what Ron said. We don't really know what he is beyond just a fast dude. And like for me, the goalpost moving, it isn't directed towards a player like him. It is towards somebody like Kevin Korchinski. And I get it that defensemen take a long time to develop. Korchinski's only 21 years old. The kid is young. However, I believe he was Davidson's real first draft pick, 7th overall, I think in 2021. And we're already seeing Levshinov, who's 19 years old, and he's already got a roster spot locked on, and arguably in different areas of his game, but just as big question marks. And Korchinski, if we look at him, he during preseason, he didn't have a solid defensive partner, right? So like for Levshinov, they got him, or they have Wyatt Kaiser. Who do they got for Kevin Korchinski? Well, nobody, because they're going to be sending him down to Rockford again. So for me, the shifting of the goalpost thing is more so for these prospects like Korchinski, where it's like, like you hear all the time about how this is a team with the young kids driving the bus. And don't get me wrong, this is a young blue line. But I think this is also getting a lot of fans unrealistic expectations of what this team is going to be. Because when you look at the team, there's like a buttload of veterans, and that's fine. But you're looking at what's going on, and it's like different than what's being preached. So I think that's kind of where I agree with you with like the frustrations of the front office and just kind of some of the stuff that's getting put out through like the mouthpiece and just looking at what's going on with the roster. I don't know. Am I making sense or am I sounding a little crazy?
I think go ahead, Ron. I was just going to say real quick. I think that's part of the problem. There's two different things happening at the same time. One, they're telling you one thing, and then the actions and everything else also sort of doesn't go with that. Look at how look at how fun the end of last year was with a lot of that youth. And then here's the opening day roster. That's all I wanted to add. Ron, go ahead.
I mean, I would make the argument though, gentlemen, that if we're talking last season, the end of last season to the beginning of this season, the only difference is Oliver Moore. That's the
And
only
Jeff
difference.
Blashill.
Well, I'm saying from a roster construction, but it's still largely the
Sam
same
Lafferty?
roster. He's not a youthful injection.
Hey, he is a Four Feathers podcast legend.
He is a Four Feathers.
And we will not slander his name here.
We will not slander Sam Lafferty here. But what I'm trying to make the point of is like the youth is coming, but the youth is also the pillars of this team. I think that's what a lot of people are losing sight of. Not the whole roster's 24. It's the pillars are the young guys, your top D pairings. Really your top 4 defensemen are all youth. your fifth defenseman is going to be fairly youthful, and then Grzelcyk and Murphy are your two veterans. Pillars on your forward group, your two top centers are young and now under team control. They're building the depth and the core through this blue line to be elite and this defensive group to be nasty. And then maybe you do have a little bit more veterans and role players in the forward group that come from the youth guys. Role players come a little bit later down the road. They take time, and you got to figure out where they fit. I think overall, though, you're seeing a little bit of it. Colton Dock making the roster, and this was something that stood out to me while we're on the topic of what stands out about this roster. Colton Dock had a really good preseason, and they clearly like where his game is. As long as he can stay healthy, because we've seen it, he can get a little dinged up. I think Colton Dock can be a really important player this year. In fact,
Do you think he's going to wind up with a better career in the NHL than his brother?
he could. And it might be because he finds his role. I think Colton Dock's role is a really good middle six winger. That's more
He's a little spark plug.
Yeah, who's more physical and a power forward when it comes to the type of offense that he brings than like a true scorer. His brother was big, but more of a true scorer and a passer, where Doc has a little more physicality. And I think he fits today's day and age of like that guy that's going to hit people that you need on the roster, who can bring the offense and be that spark plug for your guys. I will say, I think Stoll nailed it here. Moore is the first guy to be called up. And he asks, is Nolan Allen being left off surprising? I don't think it is. I think best case scenario for Nolan Allen at this point, he's maybe your fourth defenseman. I really think that's kind of his ceiling right now.
Can I go back to something that you said, I believe, on the last show, Ron, that some of these guys aren't going to work out?
100%.
Some of these guys aren't going to work out. And that's sort of the message that I wanted to bring in and tie back to what I said earlier. When you have guys that take steps backwards, Kevin Korchinski, cough, sometimes it doesn't work out. And if you're not cracking what's a lineup that has according to what is Money Puck, a 4.5% chance of making the playoffs right now before a game has even been played.
4.8.
4.8.
I think that was the number I saw earlier.
I thought it was 4.5. Could have been 4.8. Still like the lowest in the league. You probably have some work to do on your game. That's why this is an interesting conversation we have here, breaking down who's made this roster and who hasn't. I kind of found the Nolan Allen one a little bit surprising. So I will side in Stoll Breezing's camp. I found that one a little bit surprising. Now, given the veteran presence that's on this blue line, and Grzelcyk and Connor Murphy, really. I could have probably made a case, but Ron also made a great case last week it might have been 2 weeks ago, on why he thought that Grzelcyk was going to get signed.
Yeah.
It's
about 2 weeks.
Extra deep presence. There's a little bit of depth there. I defer to GM Ron on this one because he knows how to make the roster work together in a way that I can't.
GM Ron also has one quick little note, and this is something I called out in shameless plug on tapsportsnet.com. Wrote a little bit of an article about the lineup. Steve wrote a great Blackhawks on Tap article as well for everybody out there that needs to go read that. I talked a little bit about kind of what does what does this roster ultimately look like as the season evolves. There is a lot of veteran presence, especially in that forward group, that falls off the books this year. And if the Blackhawks are really out of it, maybe, just maybe, this is the last run of truly like selling at the deadline and then going from there. Because Ilya Mikheyev is in the last year of his contract. Nick Foligno was in the last year of his contract. Jason Dickinson's in the last year of his contract. There's a number of players on this roster that are in the last seasons of their contracts. Sam Lafferty is also in that same camp. You've only got, I believe, one more season after this one, maybe two of Burakovsky. That's also in line with Teravainen and Bertuzzi. There's
Please don't walk me down this path.
all I'm saying is, Tony, is there
Please
is a
don't walk me
world
down this path.
where everybody's calling for these young kids. We might see them before the year's over. We might see Anton Frondell this year, who had a hat trick in the SHL in the last week or so and pulled a Michigan goal and has been all over our timelines as we get ready for the Blackhawks season. He might be in this lineup by March. All I'm saying is, I think take this opening night roster in some sorts with a little bit of a grain of salt in terms of this is not how it's going to end. And if it does, they're still just going to let a lot of those guys walk. And I don't think that would be the right move, but who knows? And a lot of that will depend on how the season goes. Gentlemen, the only other thing I don't think we've covered so far that I had noted from our preseason observations was Nazar driving play. Had 5 points in the preseason, has looked phenomenal. People are fired up about number 91. He's got the new contract, as we've discussed over the offseason here at Four Feathers. That's a big one that stood out. Is there anything that we haven't talked about yet, though, that you'd like to get you off your chest about the preseason? Or do we move forward to some predictions? I open the floor to you both because I know there's a lingering forward that we keep saying his name, but it feels like we're dancing around the bush a little bit.
I wasn't even going to go there. I was just going to say my one other observation from the preseason. The penalty kill looks like it needs a little bit of work. And that was not something that I was all too worried about last year, but it bothered me irrationally on what was that, Friday night, Steve? I believe I texted you
Yeah.
about the penalty kill in specific. That one bothered me a lot, and I think that can lead to a lot of losses if you're taking penalties and you can't kill them. It's going to be an entirely different system. It feels like under Jeff Blashill. I know, regular season's going to be coached a little bit tighter, a little differently than what preseason games are. But I was probably irrationally mad at a certain point in time on Friday after rewatching that game and just looking at how out of place things looked, to the point where it raised a little bit of a red flag for me leaving the preseason into the regular season. I'm curious to see what it looks like tomorrow if they, and probably will, take a penalty. But you just really, that's how games can get out of hand, and that was not something that I enjoyed seeing. The Blackhawks cowboy is in here and said, I predict the Blackhawks will be bad. That's not what I wanted to hear entering this year once again, but I agree. And he said the PK, Anthony Toney says the PK was terrible. I also agree with Anthony Toney here. The PK was just brutal. Steve, maybe talk me off the ledge a little bit because you tried to via text message the other day. I just need more reassurances that it's not going to be that bad.
I got some good news that I some stuff that I saw from Jeff Blashill that I liked, but I don't think it's going to really talk you off the ledge because they're still going to be bad, but I think it's going to be in a good way. Just stick with me for a second with this. So not really specific to the PK. I guess like their defensive philosophy in general. So what I noticed with Jeff Blashill encouraging his defensemen to be a lot more aggressive in standing up at the blue line. So the past few years, one thing that we've noticed was on the rush, the defensemen would shell up and like they would get sucked right back into their defensive zone and would kind of just let the opposition just waltz right into their own DZ and just take over the game. What we saw in the preseason was usually one defenseman, instead of mirroring the other defenseman and going back into the defensive zone, they would go forward and try to pressure the puck carrier. So it's a lot more aggressive. That's the style of defense that I would like to see, especially for this young team. It's good because if you have players like Sam Renzel who can be quick, that's how you launch counterattacks in the neutral zone, leads to exciting hockey. However, it ties back to kind of what I said in the beginning, where it has the potential to get real ugly. This is a young team. It's going to be a bad team, so there's a huge risk of nasty turnovers, creating odd man rushes. Like a young defenseman makes a bad read. He tries to pressure when he shouldn't. So it's going to get a little ugly at times. But I think with Jeff Blashill, he's teaching these kids that it's okay to be aggressive, and that's going to come on the PK as well, where they're going to be coached to be taking more risks. And that's fine as long as we start seeing results eventually. But we are going to see a lot of growing pains systemically as a whole, just with nasty turnovers, kind of like what we saw in the preseason. So it's going to be ugly, but it's going to be ugly with a purpose. So I don't know if that kind of helps you sleep a little bit better at night, Tony.
No, not at all.
Oh,
In
man.
fact, in fact, Steve, you just like really brought the room down here. No, I'm kidding. I get the ugly with the purpose, but it makes me sort of irrationally mad at this point. And I think that we can go back to a comment that came on here earlier. I'm trying to find it as I scroll through here, but it talked about Blashill feeling like a Rick Renteria hire. There it is. Ron, you might have got the assist there, or Steve did, whoever did. Thank you. But it makes me question some things. Obviously, as a Hawks fan, we've been doing this a long time. You want to see them take a step forward. That was not something that was as big of a problem last year, and seeing regression in certain areas. For those who didn't watch the preseason and might encounter this, there's going to be a different look to that PK unit, and it was not one that's pleasant. So I wanted to address and highlight that. And Steve, I think you gave an excellent breakdown on the why there. But it's also things that keeps me sort of awake at night, after watching a Hawks game, and I see that, and now your words will just flood back to memory, and I'm going to be like, God damn it. I don't want that to be the case, but I digress. That's it for me from preseason stuff.
Yeah, fair enough, man. Stola Breezing said here about Blashill. Blashill aggressive pressure philosophy on the PK will be brutal with the Blue Liner youth this season. Yeah, I mean, we're gonna have to wait and see. Anthony Tony asked, have we talked about if we think Levshinov's play warrants a spot in the opening night lineup? I think it does with Wyatt Kaiser. I think Ben Pope wrote a great article about it the other day, kind of noting how Kaiser's been kind of a good mentor to Artem Levshinov, and just kind of the.
Well, you'd think if that was the case, they would have gotten that deal done real fast, wouldn't they?
Yeah, I don't think that's as big of a concern, but I do think it's interesting though how like those two are gelling well, and the numbers support it. Like I look at it from an analytical standpoint. Artem Levshinov's underlying numbers are nauseatingly better when he plays with Wyatt Kaiser than literally everybody else in the lineup. If you're going to have young players playing together, like that's a great way to do it. And I think they understand that Levshinov's probably too good for Rockford, but like just needs to kind of grind through it and figure it out at the NHL level. And I think that's how they're going to approach it. Still had a fun comment a little bit earlier too. Sam Renzel's 30-1 for the Calder Trophy this year.
Steve, do you have thoughts on Artem Levshinov? Because I've got thoughts on Artem Levshinov that I could rattle off for like probably a half an hour, but I want to hear yours first.
Oh yeah. I think my take probably will get a lot of Blackhawks fans grabbing the pitchforks out, and I don't think Kevin Korchinski.
That's what we want to hear.
Yeah, well, I don't think Kevin Korchinski should be in the AHL, especially if Artem Levshinov is here, because to Ron's point, where Artem Levshinov is too good for the AHL, which some people might disagree with, and I do agree with that, because in the AHL, I don't think Levshinov had any interest in competing down there. Now, that mindset of putting in effort in the AHL is a totally different.
Steve, I'm gonna stop you for a second, because this is what I really want to dig into. Do you think it has anything to do with the fact that Artem Levshinov could be playing in his home country of Russia instead of coming overseas to play in the U.S.
He's Belarusian.
But
Yeah,
okay, so was he here before?
So he was here
'Cause I
in
didn't know if
the
this was similar to the Demidov situation.
no, this is
No,
totally different.
he played collegiately. He played at
Okay.
Michigan
Yeah.
State.
Played 1
Okay.
year with
So
Michigan and
would it just be the fact that he doesn't want to compete in the AHL, given the fact that he was a second overall pick or third
well,
overall pick within the
so
top 5 and doesn't want to go down there? What's his resistance to Rockford? Where else can he be? And Ron, maybe help me out here. Where could he be right now if he wasn't in the NHL?
He
That's
could
what I'm
be in
trying to get to the
Rockford.
bottom
For Levshinov,
of.
he was in Rockford at the beginning of last season.
So what's his resistance to going back down then?
he doesn't there's like why would it, like kind of to your point, like a player of his caliber and his mindset, why would he want to go to Rockford? And even when the NHL season was over last year and they sent him to Rockford with the intention of playing playoff games,
Right.
Levshinov was confused, mostly because of like the language disconnect, because he's still learning English, but like he didn't know why he was going back to the AHL. So like that tells me that his mindset is he doesn't give a shit about the AHL. And that kind of ties into what I was saying about like the whole effort thing. And, like, yeah, you can make a case where it's like you want to see him playing 100% at the AHL, but like he was picked number 2 overall. And yeah, I get it. Defensemen take a long time to develop, but like his skill set, he skates circles around these AHL guys. Like and this ties into my problem with Korchinski being down there is like Korchinski, he's a really good skater. Sure, he doesn't have like the physicality and he needs to work on the defense. But with Korchinski, he's going to be skating circle around these like meatheads. And my worry is Korchinski developing these bad habits where Levshinov, he's here at the NHL and he's going to look like ass like he has. But at least he has a young player like Wyatt Kaiser, and he's going to kind of figure out how to adjust his current skill level to the NHL. And I wish Kevin Korchinski had a player like that he could play with at the NHL level, so that way he doesn't develop like bad habits at the AHL. That's just my opinion, though, and I know a lot of people disagree with that.
I think that is kind of something that could be the case, because I look at Connor Murphy. He's probably not the player you want playing with Korchinski right now. That's why they have Grzelcyk on the roster. That's why Del Mastro is skating with him right now while Vlasic is out. Realistically speaking, right, Grzelcyk's been skating with Renzel. Grzelcyk's going to move down to probably that pairing with Murphy at some point this season. I think there's a lot to do with that too for Korchinski. Now, if Murphy, who's also on an expiring contract, just as Grzelcyk is, if they backfill that maybe with a trade, maybe with something else, a player they see that fits well with Korchinski, I think there's a lot of opportunity for that. I also think Levshinov is kind of an anomaly because he played in college as a defenseman and then came right up and went to the A and didn't have to go to the CHL. I think Kevin Korchinski, the CHL transfer bargaining agreement essentially kind of, I think, screwed Korchinski a little bit because he was too good to play in juniors. That would have been an opportunity for him to develop bad habits, Steve. But he couldn't go to Rockford and he couldn't develop in the backyard of the Blackhawks where they could have more control over it. So they're like, well, fuck it. We're just going to have to put him on the NHL roster. It was kind of just a bad situation, I think, unfortunately, with Korchinski. And I think that's why it's a little different than with Levshinov.
It's screwing me up when it comes to this whole NHL defenseman thing in terms of what expectations are. And I think, Ron, you've had a better understanding of, the CHL rules and the AHL rules and how all this stuff balances out. But I sort of agree with the fact that Steve said if Artem Levshinov is here, why isn't Kevin Korchinski in year 3 part of this roster? It starts to make me question whether or not he's the type of guy that's going to be able to pan out in this. I know everybody wants to believe that every single one of these guys is going to make it and be part of this. But again, we just talked about why that's not really possible. And so I feel like it's okay to question whether or not you've got a problem on your hands. They're not going to go out and say it. Nobody's going to go out there and say, from the organization, Kevin Korchinski just is not going to make this roster or be part of the next quarter, has fallen out of favor. But the actions speak louder than words here. And when guys don't make the roster after being on the roster, I get all the rationale. I think it's fair to at least assess the situation given what's on there. Now, if that's why he doesn't have his Wyatt Kaiser, but Artem Levshinov does, that's a Kyle Davidson problem, in my opinion. Why is your roster not accommodating someone that was that highly thought of after as a prospect?
I think you also just
Yeah.
have misses because not every prospect's going to work out. Also,
Correct.
every
So
prospect.
the answer lies somewhere in between, and we want it to work out the best way. But there's
Right.
still both ends of that
But
cliff that you can fall off of.
You also have the instance where not everybody develops at the same rate either. This isn't, the exact same script for every player. We've seen guys develop later in careers than others.
That's
And
true. That's fair.
Korchinski is very, very young. Couple of good comments here. Anthony Tony says Allen outplayed Del Mastro in the preseason. He doesn't understand why he's down there, but said Levshinov is a quick learner. Stoltz says Korchinski puck watching, lack of physicality, some inconsistency is why he belongs in Rockford. Anthony Tony, though, says Korchinski will be fine. Most this year in Rockford would be beneficial for him. Follows that up saying Korchinski is the smallest 6'2" players he's ever seen. Levshinov looks like he's 6'5" out there. And yeah, Korchinski just turned 21. I think also Korchinski playing in Rockford, he's going to play more minutes. If you have things to work on, Levshinov's a little different. Levshinov's going to play in the top 4. He's going to play 20-plus minutes a game most nights. Korchinski was probably going to get relegated to 16, 17 minutes a night, where he can go play 22 to 23 on most nights in Rockford. I think that has a lot to do with it as well, because he just wasn't going to fit into this equation right now, because I think what we also forget, because Grizzlies skating up there right now, and it's been a couple days, like Vlasic and Renzel is absolutely your top pairing, and they're going to play a disgusting amount of minutes next season.
For the sake of arguing, Ron, because I want to argue tonight. I don't know. That's just the mood I'm in.
I wonder why.
For the sake of arguing tonight, what are they going to mess up with having someone like Korchinski on this roster? Their 4.8% playoff chance.
They could mess up the young player that you rush to the NHL when he's not ready, just like Kirby Dach, who we ironically just brought up tonight.
You already had to rush him to the NHL in his first year as a professional.
Yeah, but that was literally because you had no other choice. Kirby Dach should have gone back to the WHL and beat up little 16-year-olds for a year.
And when the story closes on Kevin Korchinski, and I hope I'm wrong, we're going to look at these development years, and it's going to go under the microscope. It might take 8 years for that to happen, because Kyle Davidson will still be the GM of the Chicago Blackhawks, telling you that, next year's the year that we're going to compete. But we'll go under the microscope and we'll look at this development story. And I don't think just right now, it doesn't have a rosy ending to me.
You know what's funny, Tony? I'm glad you brought that up, because we're gonna look back into history for a second. We're gonna have a little history class here on Four Feathers. We'll look at the golden years of Blackhawks hockey, because that's what everybody wants to talk about. There was a certain.
I was told they don't. But
go
ahead.
It depends who you ask. But if you look back to the development and build of that team and first round picks and who were significant contributors and all of that good stuff, there were a lot of misses in the first round, even of that group. Jack Skilly, but most notably,
Legend.
I think of Cam Barker, who was an early defenseman who never panned out. And I'll tell you what, there's a world where we can look back about everything and say, wow, that 22 class was weird, because Kevin Korchinski, your 7th overall pick, you got that pick for Alex DeBrincat. And maybe he makes it to the NHL. Maybe he has a decent career as like a 6th or 5th defenseman on a team, but maybe he's just not quite what a 7th overall pick should be. But then you look at the rest of that draft class and you go, wow, but they got Frank Nazar at 13 and Sam Renzel at 25 in the same draft. That's crazy. Again, I think, Tony, what is tainting a lot of Blackhawks fans about the future and where these prospects lie and things like that is because everybody assumes they're all going to work, and that's just not realistic.
What did I say earlier?
I know.
Thank you. Thank
But
you.
it helps.
But,
It helps.
but that's why if there's one guy in that class that's just not gonna like you,
And it
again,
might happen.
prediction
Shit
markets, right?
happens.
They're great. Everybody's on Kalshi and Polymarket these days. They're all making bets. But if I had to say which one of that draft class is going to stick with this team, it's probably Frank Nazar. And Hawks fans will look back in 10 years and be happy about it. But right now, because it's in your face, everybody thinks that all these guys are going to pan out. So, if I sound like I'm hating on Kevin Korchinski right now and upset that he's in the AHL, this is just me placing my prediction market bets, guys.
And that's totally fair. That's a very argumentative way to get to your prediction for Kevin Korchinski's career. Again, you just like you said, you're in a mood to argue, and we'll have some argument.
Somebody has
here.
to be combative. If we were just sitting here agreeing the whole time, it'd be probably boring.
It
That'd be
probably would be
terrible.
boring. It probably would be boring. But gentlemen, Steve, do you have anything to add here?
I mean, I think both of you guys bring up some great points. I lean a little bit towards Tony, but I think Ron, everything you're saying it's true. Like, you got to consider that side of it too. And I don't know. I think both of you guys brought up excellent points.
And also, if it was easy and every prospect worked out, rebuilds would be boring, and the sports world would not have dynasties because there would just be consistent ebbs and flows of teams, and it would be really fucking boring to watch. So, again, I think that's all we need to wait and see with. Gentlemen, we have an opportunity to be even more argumentative because we are moving on to our season predictions. We have a handful of questions here, a lot of them statistical based, some of them could be taken in other routes other than just stats and raw numbers on different sheets. But we have a fair amount of questions here that we're going to go through, about 8 of them, and give our answers. We just offer these up today. So these were very react and take care of business and see what happens. And that's what we're going to do here. The first one, gentlemen, we'll start it off easy. We'll keep the training wheels on. Who leads the team in goals? Steve, who was your answer?
I think Frank Nazar. I think his second full season in the NHL, he's going to unlock his finishing ability. He kind of struggled last year with breakaways and things like that, but I think he's figuring it out. He looked really good in the preseason, and I think he's going to lead the team in goals.
Tony?
These are going to be very similar answers, but Connor Bedard, at least for me, I'm going to have a lot of similar answers here. It's Connor Bedard leads the team in goals this year. That I feel like that has to happen. It needs to happen. You need to take that step forward. You're the centerpiece of this rebuild. Get out there and lead the team in goals this year. Connor Bedard.
I like it. I'm actually going to tail Steve on this one. I think Frank Nazar is going to score more goals. And I think that's okay. I have a very the rosy glasses are on today, gentlemen. You'll see it in my answers as we continue through this thing here. I'm excited to see what happens. But we've got some number predictions here in the comments. Lebowski here says Bedard with 35 goals. He follows that up saying Nazar will score 24. Gentlemen, Tony,
I had about 35.
Okay. And Steve, what's your number for Frank Nazar?
I'm not going to get specific. I'm going to say probably around 30 goals. A little over 30.
I'm gonna be a little spicy.
I'm waiting for yours. Let's go, Ron. I want to hear it.
I think Frank Nazar is going to score 35, and I think Bedard's going to score 30.
Ooh, Stolet breezing in the comments says Frank is a killer, Bedard isn't. We should do a whole show just on that at some point. We might, but I'd also say that's a problem if that's true. Yeah. I think they're both killers. I think they both can be killers.
Still, it's got similar vibes here. 34 for Nazar, 29 for Bedard. I really do think there's a world where that could end up working out. So that is
Anthony Toti. Donato hits the back of the net another 30 times. I'm expecting another 30 for him, but I wouldn't be surprised if he falls a little short, somewhere in the 26, 25 range. I think that would still be a productive enough season for Donato.
28's my number for Donato. I think it's.
You got to remember there was a couple of multi-goal games there, a couple of empty netters hit for Donato. I don't know, just might be hard to get up to that level of
I
production
think
that he
he's
had
getting
last
around
year.
20.
20. I think that's
Yeah.
possible.
Would you consider that a huge regression, Steve? 20 for
Not like
Donato?
a huge regression. It's just like a fall back towards reality a little bit.
And that's fine. I don't think he was paid, and that's what people are going to get mad that he was re-signed if he hits 20. I know I'll see that take out there somewhere online. But I want to level set. This is our prediction show. This is looking at what the season's going to be. I just don't know if we're checking in here in sometime in late April if we're mad that Donato scores 20. I think that would be a fine level of production.
I think we're going to revisit this point. So I'm gonna put the pause button on that conversation because we're going to get to that here with another question in just a few. But we're going to persist forward, gentlemen, down the stat sheet. Usually after goals, when you're looking, you find assists. So who is your assist leader for the Chicago Blackhawks in 2025, 2026? I'm going to go first. I think it's Connor Bedard, and I think that's okay because I think maybe Connor Bedard becomes a little bit more. Or continues his path, I should say, as a little bit more of a playmaker, maybe than a shooter, which he was at the junior level. Gentlemen, your takes.
I'm going to agree with you. I think it's Bedard. The only reason why I don't think he's going to be leading in goals is because he doesn't really have anybody to help him. Maybe if you had like a player similar to Frank Nazar on his line, I could maybe see that happening, but I think Bedard's going to be creating a lot of opportunities for the other players. He's going to be padding their stats up. I think he's going to be leading the team in assists. I kind of feel like with what Lebowski's saying, like maybe around 45 assists, maybe sounds realistic. Can't remember what he had last year. It was pretty high. I had those numbers up, but yeah, I think Bedard's going to lead the team in assists.
It seems like here our good friend, Mr. Blackhawks Cowboy, says Nazar is going to set up Turbo and Burt all year. That's at least who he's starting with on that second line. Tony, who's your assist leader?
Connor Bedard. I know that that name hasn't been said before, but I'll tell you why. Connor Bedard is going to lead the team in assists. And if you want to know why, just listen to what both of my co-hosts said just now.
Incredible analysis, Tony.
I'm here to bring the fire.
I know you are. I think we're going to get to a little bit more fire here with some of our later questions, but we'll keep it going. Total points, gentlemen. I think we can probably say this one all at once. I have Connor Bedard.
I've got Connor Bedard.
Connor Bedard.
Perfect. We'll keep it.
He
moving.
has to be. He has to
yes,
be.
I think he does, and
that's
I think
the expectation.
I think that's why Nazar can score more goals because I think Bedard's just going to have the most points, and a lot of those are going to come via assists. I would
like him to lead both categories. I would like him to lead both categories. I think that would go a long way for Connor Bedard to lead both.
Lebowski says an 80-point season for Bedard, 35 and 45. Anthony Tony said 48 a little bit earlier. I think Bedard gets 30, and I think he has over 50 assists. I really think it could be that kind of a season. Like if Bedard's going to take that step forward, and I think there was a comment in here a little bit earlier about that, about like, well, yeah, Bedard has to. I think this was it from here. Blackhawks Cowboy. Bedard has that. It's just hard to finish off teams in a rebuild like the killer. He needs to like take that next step forward and show some of that. And it could be on the passing side. I think he has over 50 assists. So I think that's plenty good enough for him to have that total point number as well when it's all said and done. Gentlemen, I think this might be the first one that we actually debate here a little bit. I think this one's going to be fun. How many 20-goal scorers will the Blackhawks have? They had 4 last season. It was Ilya Mikheyev, Ryan Donato, Tyler Bertuzzi, and Connor Bedard. Steve, you have a number. Care to walk us through it?
I do have a number, and that number is 4. I think it's going to be about the same as last year. Bedard and Frank Nazar, I think those are the 2 obvious ones. I think Donato is number 3. I think he's going to score just north of 20. I think he's going to have a little bit of a regression from last year. I think I have a feeling Burakovsky, if he stays healthy, I could see him having a good comeback season playing with Bedard, and he probably scores maybe around 25 goals. And for Ilya Mikheyev, I think he's going to be spending most of his time on the third line this season. So I don't really see him coming close to his. He had 20 goals last year, so I don't really see him coming close to that. I would maybe include Tavo in that because Lebowski said it earlier. He's a fine playmaker with Bedard, and I think last year they did Bedard a disservice by not playing Tavo with him, and it looks like he's going to be playing with a lot of Frank Nazar, which is great. I think he's going to get a lot of points from that, and then hopefully Blashill puts Tavo up with Bedard, and if that's the case, I think Tavo is going to have just over 20. So I changed my answer from 4 to 5, so I think it's going to be 5.
I think five's a good number there. There's some agreement with you here in the comments. We'll get to those in just a second. Tony, what's your number?
Got 7 right now.
Wow.
Bedard, Donato, Nazar, I think are all locks for 20 goals. I think you can argue that Bertuzzi and Burakovsky could make it to that number. And then I'm gonna go on the long end of this and say Jason Dickinson can find the back of the net. And I know, we've had some up and down stuff here, but he's shown the ability to find the back of the net. There's always going to be one guy that sneaks up on you. Maybe you get a good year of Jason Dickinson, and then Teuvo Teravainen, also another guy that can find the back of the net. I could see 7 guys right now that, might light the lamp 20 times this season for the Blackhawks. Those are my 7 guys.
I like it a lot. We've got some predictions here. Lebowski has 4. He says Bedard, Nazar, Donato, and Tavo. Stole it, echoing something similar. Bedard, Nazar, Burt, and Donato for his 4. In addition, Anthony Tony here. Of course, now, hey, Tony, can I get an assist? Because my comment thing is freezing. I appreciate that.
The teamwork. Look at this line working overtime right now.
Teamwork making the dream work. In addition to that, a couple other ones in there. Anthony Tony said Bedard, Nazar, Donato, Bertuzzi, and Tavo, all of at least 20. So he's got 5, echoing what Steve had to say. And for Blackhawks Cowboy, he said 6. He's got Bedsy, Nazar, Andre, Burt, Turbo, and Donato. Gentlemen, I also have 6. I have a name, though, that's going to throw everybody for a loop.
Oliver Moore.
That's the last one I'm going to share. But I have Bedard, and I have Nazar. I don't think we're surprised there. Ryan Donato is on my list as well. I do believe Teuvo Teravainen gets that 20 number. I think he gets right to 20, though. I think it's going to be 20 goals. That's where Tavo's getting if he gets there. I do have Burakovsky getting that number as well. I think Burakovsky is good for 25. I really do. I think there's a world where that's completely possible. I don't think that's as goofy as people like to sound. He's had really good years, and when Burakovsky has not been buried in lineups, he plays really well with elite players. He did so in Colorado, and that's where he had his best numbers, was playing with the likes of Nathan McKinnon. There's nothing that says him playing with Bedard can't get him somewhere near that number as well. He was a 60-point player in Colorado and always over 40 points, pushing 50 points in his 3 seasons there. My last one, maybe this one's just for fun. Maybe it's a little hopeful. Maybe it's making up for an error that Ron Luce had in the draft process on this show somewhere back in the year 2019. I think Colton Dach could bank 20.
Oh, Ronald, that's spicy.
Because I think if Tyler Bertuzzi, with his drop to one knee and deflect pucks in at the blue paint, can get to fucking 20 goals, why can't Colton Dach, who's going to be crashing the net and being a physical presence in front, not do the same? I think he's a fun answer. And he's a player that has the skill set based on what they're playing, where he could get to the front of the net and maybe he gets 5 goals off of tip-ins. He's shown that the shot is there. I think it could be a lot of fun. So we'll just have to wait and see when it's all said and done. But I say 6. And those are my 6. Gentlemen, who leads the team, not the league, the team, in average ice time? Steve.
I can't remember if I put Vlasic. Yep, that's who I put. I think Vlasic is. I think it just makes sense. He's going to be hitting 200 games in his NHL career this season. I think with Rinzel, I can see Rinzel maybe getting a demotion to the second pairing if he's like he goes through a rough stretch and Blashill wants to maybe, I don't know, like put him down on the second pair. But I think Vlasic's gonna get the average time on ice.
Tony.
I'm going to go with Vlasic as well. Not a hot start, though, being out in the first game, for accumulating those numbers and setting a precedent. But I think, in the grand scheme of things, it winds up being Vlasic. I can see Rinzel challenging. I can see, potentially a Wyatt Kaiser, but I think Vlasic winds up your leader. He's developing as a veteran presence on the blue line for the Hawks.
And I think Vlasic is a great answer. Lebowski says Wyatt Kaiser. Anthony Tony agrees on the Vlasic front. I will have to agree, though, with Stola Breezing. I believe Sam Rinzel will be your ice time leader. I don't think it's going to be by much. I think the reason that Rinzel has an opportunity to be more and higher than Vlasic is because of power play time. I think that could be a big differentiator where we'll probably only see Vlasic on the penalty kill if we see him on special teams. So I think that's something to keep in mind there. Gentlemen, who would be your MVP at season's end for this Blackhawks team? Is it Steve selling feet picks, as Matt asks in the comment section, or is it somebody else? What do you guys think? Who's your team MVP?
I think it's going to be Connor Bedard. I mean, at least I would hope so. I think he's going to have a big season. He's going to prove a lot of people wrong across the NHL fan base. It's a big year for him. I mean, if he doesn't really blow our minds this season, I'm going to be a little disappointed. But that's who I think the MVP is. And yes, Matt, I do sell my feet picks, as you very well know. You're my number one customer.
Oh, geez.
Tony, let
I
it
mean,
rip.
I don't
Who's your
even
MVP?
I don't even want to know where you find that online. I've got to go with Connor Bedard too, man. That he has to be the team MVP. I think coming in when you throw these outlines out here, Ronald, and you ask these questions, it's always a good thing to try and come up with an answer that's going to be out of the blue. It has to be Connor Bedard. This is year 3. You got to get over that sophomore slump that wasn't even really a slump, and go out and prove to everyone that you are the guy. So I'm going Connor Bedard. I think the offseason stuff that we saw, working on the speed, working on different things, should pay off for him. At a certain point, we've talked about how he doesn't have much help. It's time he goes out and does it by himself in certain situations, and we've seen a little bit of that so far within what's been said through the media and Jeff Blashill's coaching style and some of the changes that are taking place here. He's going to have to be the leader on the line, and that's the first line. I think Connor Bedard rises to the occasion here, has himself a really good year, and makes it nobody's question whether or not there was someone who was more valuable to this team this season than Connor Bedard. That's my pick for MVP.
And you guys are certainly not alone. Blackhawks Cowboy feels the same way as just Anthony Tony also says that Rinzel could potentially win the Calder. And that's actually a question that we have coming up here. Newcomer of the year, though, this can be veterans and rookies, but he has his rookie of the year being Rinzel for this team. Stolit says his team MVP is going to be Frank Nazar. Gentlemen, I have a completely different answer than all of those, and I have some reasoning behind it as well. I think Spencer Knight, and this one's for you, Tony, could be the team MVP. When it's all said and done. And the reason for that being Jeff Blashill asks his defensemen as we've noted already, to get aggressive. Part of that is not collapsing on the house in your own zone as much. So what does that mean? High danger chances are very possible. And with a young team, they're probably going to come in bunches. Spencer Knight's going to have to be on his P's and Q's against those high danger chances. And he's almost shown that he's almost better in high danger situations sometimes than not. I think Spencer Knight is going to be the team's MVP, especially if they're going to take any kind of legitimate step forward, right? It's largely the same cast from a year ago. Even if guys do improve, it's hard to improve that many wins in the standings. I think if they're going to do that, it's going to be the consistency and the big game type play that you can get from a guy like Spencer Knight. I think that's where he could go from there. Anthony Tony's saying, Knight, good call. What would his numbers have to look like? I think in order for this team to take a step forward, and I think we'll see that in my prediction for a record a little bit later. I think his save percentage is probably going to have to be around that 91% number, 910, somewhere in that range. I think the goals against should be a tick under 3, maybe a tick over 3. I'd say somewhere in the 295 to 302 range is where I would expect it for this team to truly take a step forward. So we'll have to wait and see what happens there when it's all said and done. But he is my team MVP.
I like your pick, Ron.
I knew you would. That one had some gotta give some love to the goalies for Tony.
I was actually gonna pick Spencer Knight, but then when I looked at this whole rundown and I said, I'm picking Connor Bedard for goals. I'm picking him for assists, total points. How can he not be the team MVP? What would change my mind that Spencer Knight would be up there? And I think you highlighted a lot of good points, because I also saw the report about Jeff Blashill not, letting his team collapse as much. And I'm sorry, I want to give this to Steve. Steve, do you think that that's going to be beneficial long term? This is actually a question I wanted to ask on this show, because you're the guy that dissects the X's and O's, and you do so wonderfully over at ontapsportsnet.com and all those breakdowns that you do. Do you think that'll be beneficial long term?
Sorry, I was looking up at Lebowski's comment just to confirm. Yes, 9-10 would be a top 10 in the NHL. Can you repeat your question for me?
So Ron brought up in his take here that Spencer Knight can be the team MVP, and Ron, you might have had the numbers there on it better than I did, or whatever, the report on Blashill. I forget who brought it to us. It might have been Ben Pope, not sure. But there was some talk out there that his defensive system, he's not going to have the defense collapse as much, which is going to lead to more high danger scoring chances for opponents. And it's going to let Spencer Knight shine. Do you think that that's good long term from a defensive scheme with this Blackhawks blue line?
For the defense, yes. Specific to Spencer Knight, I think I can't remember if he performed better with high danger saves. I think he did. But I think for the Blackhawks defense, I think that's beneficial just because they, in my opinion, need to start playing like that. That's kind of how they're built a little bit. They're looks like they're building a fast team, so I'd like to see them try to get a turnover and create like a rush from a counterattack. But specific tonight, I mean, he's going to be like, he's going to be, I don't say struggling. He's going to be dealing with a lot of pressure. I know his penalty kill save percentage was pretty bad last season, so I think it's going to be tough to see with the penalty kill, because like we talked about earlier, just from the defense, they're not going to be that great. And then you got Spencer Knight, who might struggle on the PK. So, but yeah, I don't know. And then kind of like what we were saying, a 9-10 save percentage, that would, at least last year, that was top 10 in the NHL. I got the numbers right here. So that'd be a fantastic season for Spencer Knight. We'll see if he can come close to that.
Maybe then I'm getting my screws loose. Admittedly, I keep forgetting that the save percentage average goes down every year. Maybe something like a 905 then, is probably what I would think, which would be probably what, top 15? I think that's completely possible with a player like Spencer.
Ron, I'm with you. Why is the save percentage just evaporating?
They have evaporated, man.
Wasn't
They
there a
really
time that
have.
like 9-2, 9-3 was there?
9-3 was like, you were like, I feel like top 8 at one
Yeah.
point with like a 9-3. I don't know,
Like
man. There's been some
9-10
really
was like,
good goalie
I
seasons.
feel like 9-10 at one point was like backup goalie range.
Yeah, for some teams, for really good
For
teams, it
some teams,
definitely
for
was.
really good teams, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. So yeah, maybe I'm just dating myself.
Steve, what was Scott Darling's save percentage in like what, 2013, 2014?
Oh man. Let me look that up. I'll get back to you.
As we wait for a number there, gentlemen, your newcomer of the year. Again, this can be a rookie. This can be just a young guy who maybe is technically a rookie, but has already debuted. Again, some people view the term rookie as different, but obviously in hockey terms, it has a little bit of a different meaning. And new veterans. This also includes just new faces on the roster as well. As Steve looks up numbers, I'll go ahead with mine. I think Andre Burakovsky is going to be the newcomer of the year. I know a lot of people soured on that trade. I didn't, because that's something I've thought about. I've executed in NHL Blackhawks franchises of my own as a trade that makes sense for what the Blackhawks want to do. A guy who's on a contract for a team that's a little cap strapped. Seattle has a lot of big contracts. They want to pay guys. They're trying to be, a winning franchise right now as an expansion team, trying to kind of almost gain on the heels of Vegas's success as a new team in this league. They wanted to get his contract off the books, and they did that successfully. $5.5 million gone for the next few years. The Blackhawks can afford to do that, especially with a rising cap now. Even if he's a third line player at $5.5 million in a season or two, you'll take that. But I think this year, if he really gets a fair chance with Bedard, especially early in the season, he has shown when he plays with elite players, he can put up the numbers. And sometimes you just need those guys, right? They don't always make sense. Hell, Pascal Dupuis and Chris Kunitz played better with Sidney Crosby than better players sometimes did, just because they meshed and they had chemistry. I hope Andre Burakovsky and Connor Bedard have chemistry. And
We need
give
an
this team a
alert when
25 goal season.
Chris Kunitz gets mentioned on this show. We need an alert like sound that I can play.
A little Chris Kunitz alert sound.
Yes.
That almost sounds like more of a drinking game where you rip a shot or something when you hear Chris Kunitz's name. Shot him alert.
Steve. We need Steve, this is right up your alley.
Oh God, no. I still got some left over, so maybe.
Yeah. I like it. I like it a lot. Tony, while we're on the topic here, who's your newcomer?
Guy's not really a newcomer. I'm going to go the veteran route here. And I apologize for anyone who's never witnessed the glory that Sam Lafferty brings to a hockey team. But Sam Lafferty is cool and tough, and we know that here on Four Feathers podcast. I think Matt is in the same camp as me. I might be wrong, but Sam Lafferty has TWTW. He's got grit. He's going to replace a veteran role that was filled by, I would say, Pat Maroon last year, and someone that sort of became endeared in Chicago who shouldn't have been, because he was there to stick up for his teammates. He was there to provide a role. I think Sam Lafferty is finally going to get the opportunity. This is the third time I think he's been acquired by Kyle Davidson, to show how fucking cool and tough he is. And if you look at this roster, outside of maybe Colton Dock, who we talked about making this team, there's not really a guy that fits the profile of physical bruiser and someone who's willing to get into the dirty areas and do the things that Sam Lafferty is going to do. So I'm going Sam Lafferty as my newcomer of the year. I think a lot of people are sleeping on the fact that he's probably a veteran presence that's not always going to be in the lineup, but he's going to be in the lineup for a reason most nights. And we talk about role players. I think Sam Lafferty definitely knows his role with this group, and will be someone that a lot of Blackhawks fans are happy to have on this roster in short order once he proves why he's here wearing the Indian head sweater. So I'm going Sam Lafferty.
I like it. I like it a lot. Steve, who's your answer?
All right, before I give my answer, I got Darling's numbers from 2014-15. In 14 games, he had a 936 save percentage. Corey Crawford had a 924 with 57 games played, so times have changed. For my newcomer, I picked Sam Renzel just because he played 9 games last season. At the end of the season, he looked phenomenal, in my opinion. However, we still don't really know what he is. He's a young defenseman, and I think he's got a tough year ahead of him, in my opinion. It's a lot to ask for him, and I think he's going to impress a lot of people. I think he's going to be who we think he is, and I think Blackhawks fans are going to be happy. I don't know if he's going to get the Calder. I'm not sure about that yet, but I think he's going to be a hell of a defenseman for us.
Heck yeah. I love that one. All the more. I will note this, Tony. You mentioned Sam Lafferty. Kyle Davidson was named interim GM in October of 2021, or it was in 2021. He officially got the job in early 2022 as GM. But one of the first trades he made, because he dumped Malcolm Subban for future considerations. Chad Kryes was added for Curtis Gabriel, who just played in Rockford. His first real meaningful trade to shape the NHL roster for the Blackhawks, acquiring Sam Lafferty for William Nylander from the Pittsburgh Penguins. I think there's some just romance of Sam Lafferty and Kyle Davidson that just keeps him coming back. But certainly a player we appreciate a hell of a lot here at Four Feathers, and will continue to appreciate a hell of a lot as times persist. Finally, gentlemen, perhaps the most fun of the predictions, record prediction. I went out on a limb and did points and a win-loss, overtime loss record, but at least bare minimum points here. What are we feeling? What's the pulse check for this upcoming season?
I got them finishing with 68 points. I don't think they're going to improve by a whole lot. I think, best case scenario, in my opinion, I think they get just above 70, but I think realistically they're going to hit 68. I think they're going to be bad again.
That's totally fair. Totally fair. Lebowski kind of fitting in with that number 72. Anthony Tony says 70. Tony, our Tony, what's your number?
My number was originally 77. I don't know if I feel comfortable with that, given where we're at. And here's improve and be fun bad. I had to live fun bad discussions with the Chicago White Sox this year, and Ron, you and I have spent countless hours on the phone discussing whether or not you, as an outsider to the White Sox, felt that this team was going to be fun bad. I think 77 firmly puts them in fun bad for the Hawks this year. 77 points. Some wins that are intriguing. I think this team is still going to have an issue potentially playing down to certain other teams and having some really bad losses. What is Arvid Soderblom going to do? I think that's something that we haven't talked about much here. You've seen 2 different versions of this guy so far this year. And I think that the Blackhawks record is largely going to depend on some of your backup goaltending. Spencer Knight is not going to start 60 games, 50 games for the Hawks this year. So you're going to have a lot of Arvid Soderblom. You might see some Drew Commesso. There could be some health things that shake up the goaltending room. We just talked about a different style of play. Talked about the bad PK that we saw in the preseason. It could get ugly. It could be a 68, 66 point season. The numbers and projections aren't good. I'm aiming a little higher. I want to see 77 points. That's where I'm at. I don't know about you, Ron.
I like that a lot. Tony, are you saying the goalie situation could be to a point where we could see a Jeff Glass like call up at goaltender?
You could. I mean, theoretically, what happens if Arvid Soderblom turns into Swiss cheese by week 3? Do you pull the plug on that? Here's my thought. What's the organizational direction this season? This is why I don't like this year, and this is why I'm a little combative. Are you okay with Arvid Soderblom losing you games? Are you okay with Spencer Knight working out his problems? It can get really ugly. Do you want a shot at Gavin McKenna? What's the organizational goal here? What are we aiming for? It has to be a purpose.
Yeah.
If your purpose is, I want to win as many games as possible, I don't know. I'll go back to what I said earlier. Oliver Moore's in my opening night lineup because I want to use that speed and I want to win as many games possible and I want to take a step forward. So that's why 77 was my original pick, but I can see 68 because the organizational goal might be we don't really fucking care what our record is at the end of the year. We're going for draft position. We're going for development. We're not trying to win games. I think that sort of flies in the face of why Jeff Blashill signed on to be coach here. He wants to win games. So does Connor Bedard. So
Yeah.
we'll see. We'll see what happens. I think there's a wide range. It can vary within 20 points, I think, this year. There's a 20-point swing on the board.
Yeah.
Depending on how some guys play.
Sure. Absolutely. And I think there's a world where you can get both. You can eat your cake and eat it too. Like you can win games and the young guys can improve. But everybody in the comments saying the main thing is for the young guys to develop. I think they can develop and you can still win games at the same time. I think winning
I
helps
agree
develop.
with what Matt said here too. The org goal needs to be very clear to Bedsy.
Sure.
And I don't want to go in because my last rant that we had on this show about the Bedard contract situation and everything, but I agree with his statement. The org goal needs to be very clear to him, and he needs to understand what that is because that's the foundation of everything here. So I'll add that in there too.
Yeah, totally fair. So I think that's something we're going to be on the lookout for. I really do believe you can. To me, winning will help you develop players. There's a reason the Hershey Bears are fucking good for the last 25 years. How do you think Washington has remained relevant in the National Hockey League for the last 25 years? They develop players at Hershey because, they win fucking hockey games. Weird. That's really fucking weird. So I think it's completely possible. And that's
Is
kind
winning
of where
fun, Ron? Is winning fun?
Winning can be fun, but I don't know what a lot of winning sports fucking look like recently, Tony. So
Well, we
I
do
don't
live in
remember.
Chicago.
So we'll have to wait and see. But what I will say is I think the Blackhawks are going to be fun bad. I think they're going to be more fun bad than people realize, Tony. Because
I did
hear
get
me
fact
out.
checked though. Steve does not live in Chicago.
No, he does not. But hear me out. The Buffalo Sabres had 79 points last season. The Buffalo Sabres were not a good hockey team, but they had a lot of talent. They have a lot of young players. They have a lot of guys that are still developing, but they were fun bad. I think the Blackhawks can be a 79-point team. I actually did it down to the win-loss overtime loss.
Wow.
I think they could be 35, 38, and 9 for 79 points next season. I think it's very possible. If this team is if the young guys are developing, they're going to get fucking better. I think that's what everybody's losing sight of. Because if you're going to be an improved hockey team, and I've said this from the start, well, the young guys need to develop. Yeah, they're going to fucking develop. And guess what? If the young guys develop, that means the pillars of your hockey team developed. And those are the guys that are going to drive your win-loss record. Because I don't know if a lot of people realize that's kind of how fucking sports works. So if Connor Bedard is an 80-point player this year and Nazar has 70 points, you know what that's going to translate to? 35 fucking wins. I think 79 is totally possible. And Lebowski says it puts the Blackhawks around the 7th pick. Guess what? That's exactly where they want to be. That's exactly where they want to be. You're not the basement again. Yeah, they're not getting Gavin McKenna, Tony. Just don't even fucking start with me on that right now. But the purpose of, guess what? The 11th team last season, Tony, won the fucking draft lottery. It doesn't matter. If you want to
Fair
be
enough.
better,
That's the answer I was looking for. But
if
somebody
you
had to
want
ask
to,
the question.
if you want to be better, and if you want to tell your fan base, this is the year that we have to get better and we can't move the goalposts again, guess what? 79 points is better. But it still puts you in a position where you have a shot at Gavin McKenna if the fucking ping pong balls treat you right. And if they don't, you still pick high in a draft that's going to give you more talent. You're adding a young player like Anton Frondell to this lineup in the not so distant future. There's a lot of good shit going the Blackhawks' way. And again, if they're going to fucking develop and get better, this team's going to win hockey games. They have to if they're getting better. The only way they don't get better in the standings is if the young players don't get better. That's really what it comes down to.
Because they're not going to spend money.
But yeah, not this year. And probably not
No,
next
exactly.
year.
They're probably not spending money for the next 2 years. Voodoo, I know he's in the comments right now, had asked a question on X before we got on here and asked you who the Marian Hossa signing is. I said that's at least 2 to 3 years away.
100%. Because they have to, Marian Hossa was added to an already established core to finish off the core.
But I think what
establishing the core.
most fans are waiting for them to make that signing so that they can sign up and reinvest in watching Blackhawks hockey again every night.
Yeah,
because
because people are impatient and they don't understand that growth takes time. The Blackhawks were fucking miserable before they won Stanley Cups when Brent Seabrook and Duncan Keith were young players. Somebody brought it up a little bit earlier in the comment section here. I hope I can find it. I think it was Anthony Toney, actually, as a matter of fact. But he mentioned Duncan Keith's 22-year-old season was really bad. Yeah. Like, you got to go through the growing pains. You got to go through the growing pains. They're going to be better. Sure. I would still be concerned about their young defensemen and turnovers too, but guess what? They're going to learn. Oh, I fucked up. Guess what? Probably shouldn't do that again. Fun, bad. Yeah, you still got to be bad. You still got to lose games. They're going to lose a lot of games early in the season, I bet. But this is going to be a team. I firmly believe it. And we can timestamp this right now.
Let's go.
And revisit this in
Steve,
March.
write down the time.
This is going to be a team that people aren't going to want to see in the dog days of winter because they're going to be young and dumb and naive, and they're not going to know better, and they're just going to want to play good fucking hockey and get better. And they're going to beat some teams in February, in March, that could alter the playoff standings. And yeah, maybe it keeps the Blackhawks firmly out of the Gavin McKenna sweepstakes, and maybe it, keeps the Blackhawks somewhere around that 79-point mark, but they're going to improve. They're going to improve as a hockey team and show this fan base, the league, that our young stars, our young pillars have improved and have gotten better, and we're going to be okay. Things are progressing in the right direction. If we want to see the jump, that's how the jump comes. Youth development is not only those young players getting better. Yes, they have to get better. And guess what? If they do, it means they have better numbers. And when you have players with better numbers, you have a better record. It's kind of weird how that works.
Big if true.
So we'll have to wait and see there. But I have 79. I know I'm probably the most optimistic, and I'm totally fine with that. I'll ride that train all my own. Gentlemen, what do you say? We get into a segment here and debut a little new graphic. Here we go.
Are you hitting it?
It's time to ruffle some feathers.
It is time to ruffle some feathers, gentlemen. Steve, I want to give the floor back to you. How are you ruffling some feathers on this hockey eve? As a matter of fact, in the city of Chicago, we are 8 minutes away from officially being opening day for the NHL. Steve, how are you ruffling feathers at the wee hours of hockey eve?
I don't think mine's going to ruffle too many feathers. I just want people to maybe hold off on their free agent wish list this early on. We're already seeing some of the big names like making commitments to their teams. Connor McDavid just signed his 2-year extension, $14 million, I think it was, per year. And looks like Jack Eichel is going to be staying with Vegas. And I don't think anybody realistically had Eichel leaving Vegas. But there's a lot of big names for next year. And I think people should just kind of just chill out on the wish list until we get a better picture of how these teams' years are looking.
Completely fair. Don't be staring at UFA lists is what Steve's trying to tell everybody out there. Tony, you're ruffling feathers in a different way this evening.
I am ruffling feathers in a different way this evening. This comes from a little scouting report that I was able to pick up as I attended the final preseason game at the United Center on Saturday. Not good. Not a good situation there in the beer vending. I was told by a couple different people that they're phasing out Budweiser for Michelob Ultra. I've never heard of this beer before in my life. I'm not sure why the United Center would want to make Michelob Ultra the number one beer available. Never had a Michelob Ultra. I've heard it's terrible. I don't know anybody that drinks it. It's just a bad decision to dethrone the king of beers. I'm very disappointed in this overall. Don't know what the 300 level situation looks like. I'm hoping that I'm pleasantly surprised on Saturday. But if I show up to our beer guy Tony and he does not have Budweiser available, I'm going to be pretty disappointed, Ron. These are new developments that are taking place, but also saw some reports that a lot of people are bringing back Michelob Ultra from the dead. I thought this beer was dead. And it's now the number one beer in America. How does this happen? Ron, do you have any thoughts on Michelob Ultra?
I mean, it happened. Anthony Tony says Ultra sucks. It's low carb and it tastes like Coors Light. Lebowski says the UC should bring back old style. I think that'd
be a move.
I think that's an
I'm
incredible
drinking Coors
take.
Light tonight, but yeah, no, I enjoy my Budweisers at Blackhawks games.
I'll tell you what, I don't have a lot of issues with Michelob Ultra. I'll drink it. I don't necessarily seek it out, but I'll drink it. If you put it in front of me, I'll happily drink it. A beer is a beer. And my favorite kind of beers are hockey beers. So if it's at the UC, I'll probably consume it. Plus, sometimes you just want something a little bit on the lighter end. Maybe the king of beers is being dethroned, Tony. I don't know, because I think you might be one of like maybe a section and a half worth of people at the UC that actually drinks Budweiser anymore.
Oh, Steve, help me out here, man. Jump in. Come on. Let's go.
Oh, no, I just liked Solar Breezing's comment about Michelob Ultra. It's for guys that drink O'Doul's. I'm not a Michelob guy. I'm not picky with my beer. Like, I love a good craft beer, but I also like will drink anything, and I'm staying away from Michelob Ultra. That sucks to hear, Tony.
Anthony Tony in here. Budweiser will always be the king, and that's true. That's hard facts. It's undeniable. I don't understand why we're doing this. So I feel like I brought something to ruffle some feathers here tonight. So my job is done.
I would say you did that quite successfully, Tony. I'll ruffle some feathers in a way that's a little bit different. I'll tell you, if you aren't excited for this season, that you should get your pulse checked. And not only just your actual pulse, but your Blackhawks pulse, because I don't believe that you're a real fan. I'll tell you what, man, I get irrationally excited for every sports team that I truly love. And probably the Hawks more than any. It gets me fired up. It gets me excited. Hockey season's fantastic, man. I enjoy it. I can't wait. It's almost here. And if you're not excited, go get your fucking pulse checked. Because they're going to be fun bad. I promise you, they're going to be fun bad when it's all said and done. Tony, Steve, let's get to our next segment.
Time to give out some stick taps.
It is time to give out some stick taps. Steve, there is not one written down for you. Do you not have any stick taps for us this evening?
I do got one. It's going to go out to, I think I gave them out to this individual before, but Blackhawks Cowboy. He's been helping out with articles. He's been writing some game recaps and previews. So big help. It's some good stuff. So stick taps to Blackhawks Cowboy. He's been a great addition to the team.
Indeed. Big stick taps to our friend Blackhawks Cowboy Tony. Stick taps. Dish them out.
Story time. Back at the UC for the first time this season on Saturday night, as I alluded to before. Had the opportunity. I'll back it up a little bit. Heading down on 55, just a nightmare if you ever try and commute into the city. Ronald, you know this. You've frequented I-55. And, there was an accident because people can't drive cars well on 55. So I was a little bit late getting to the UC on Saturday night. And I was bringing my daughter. She's been a huge fan of Jim Corneliuson since she was very, very little. I loved Jim Corneliuson singing the anthem. And we parked in the south lot, thought that was going to be closed because I don't know about you, Ron. I got an email that the south lot was going to be closed this year for construction on the 1901 project. But the south lot was open. It's open to park in. We were walking in, and as we saw in the Goose Island Lounge, the anthem was taking place. And my daughter was a little upset with me. I can't lie. She was upset. That's her favorite part. If you've ever been to a Chicago Blackhawks game, you know that getting in there and listening to the anthem is unmatched. Now, preseason game, but the anthem is still something I wanted to see. So we walk in the stadium, we're walking around trying to get to the escalators to head on up to our seats. And lo and behold, there's Jim Corneliuson. And he stopped and he talked with us, took some pictures, had a nice conversation with him. What an excellent person, just super down to earth, there to talk with you. It was just a really pleasant experience. Got to introduce my daughter to a legend that sings the national anthem that she's seen on TV for years. Great time talking to him. It was the highlight of my night and her night because the Hawks just failed to do anything. But Jim will take the extra time to make your night special. So special stick taps out to Jim Corneliuson. Not only does he sing an actual national anthem, I think the best in the business, but he's also just a real good human being. And thanks, Jim. I scored some dad points on that one, but also got to make some great memories as a Hawks fan, chopping it up with Jim for a little bit before I got to my seats and watched the Blackhawks not score a goal for the night. But either way, really good to see that. And thanks again to Mr. Jim. I can't wait to listen to you sing numerous national anthems this season and continue to blow the roof off the United Center. So thank you, Jim. That's my stick tap for the night.
Very nice, very nice. Originally, Matt told us your story sucked, but as he says here, story redeemed. Jimmy C is a gem of a singer and of a man. He says, Steve, to you that he came to the club for the Marine Corps ball a few years ago. I will say this, Tony, this is a hell of a recommendation here from Matt. Tony Tells Traffic is a new segment.
I can do traffic reports on my way to the UC for games this year.
You should.
I could go live on Spaces and talk about the traffic if people are interested in that, but I don't know
Not
if anybody would be.
I think that would be a genuine enjoyment to watch and see. Anthony Troy says here that he lives in Vegas. He says fans from other teams will always mention how much they love the national anthem at Blackhawks games. Indeed, it is truly a special experience. So pretty cool story for you there, Tony, and you guys being able to join that on Saturday despite a boring and rough Blackhawks game. Gentlemen, I'm actually going to call it a player for a stick tap here, taking a little bit of a different course. I think Ryan Green gets a stick tap for me because it's a little pre-early stick tap. I think this is the second chance that he needed after a little bit of a rough preseason because they need a guy that can win faceoffs. I think he can really play himself into some meaningful minutes with Slaggert going down. Again, Slaggert came back and we knew he was going to play, but now they're like, IR, it's a little worse than we thought it was. If he can take advantage of the time that Slaggert is out, Ryan Green might have a real chance to make a name for himself this season. Even if it is as a bottom six center, he could be a player that the Blackhawks rely on in certain situations. That is my stick tap when it's all said and done. Gentlemen, the upcoming slate of games, of course, on Tuesday, the Blackhawks play in Florida. They will watch the Stanley Cup banner be raised in South Florida. That game is at 4 o'clock Central Time on, I believe it's TNT. And then on Thursday, October 9th, Blackhawks are back on CHSN because that one's at Boston. That's a 6 o'clock start, which is pretty habitual for East Coast games and the Central Time Zone. And we will certainly be back at least one time, maybe more, before the week is done. And the Blackhawks are in action on Saturday for the home opener, Tony, which you will be in attendance for. And we actually got that question just a little bit earlier here from our friend Stola Breezing. He asked, who's going to opening night? Tony, you'll be there.
Yes, I will. That's hashtag confirmed. I know, Ronald, you won't be in attendance for it, but we will get to a couple of games this year. I think you're going to have to redo the Ron Luce Zin stick handling through beers challenge this season. I have to give you a redemption opportunity.
If I'm going to do it, I need a proper puck, and it needs to be heavier.
Those aren't the rules. Can't just change the
I'm
rules.
not doing it. Then it will live in infamy as an incredible piece of content that will only happen once.
We can get you a quick training session sometime in December when things settle down. We'll get you a proper training session. We'll work on stuff, and we'll see how it goes. Steve, don't you think he needs to retry the challenge this season?
Absolutely. I gotta dig that video up. That was legendary last season. You gotta work on those hands though.
Hey, the hands are there. When the puck doesn't move, it's kind of hard to stick handle anything. Even a big heavy piece of rubber slides on a piece of ice. So
he's blaming the
floor.
equipment. He's blaming the equipment.
I will blame the equipment because I would love to see you try it, Anthony.
Fair is fair. Fair is fair. I might try
Fair
the
is
stick
fair.
handling challenge.
All right. Well, we'll have to wait and see what happens. Gentlemen, it's going to be a great season. I know we're all excited. This was a banger of a show, but as it should be to welcome in the new year, tons of content for you guys here. We are over the 100-minute mark on this episode, and people get to listen to it all as we get ready for the season. We will be back after games throughout the year. We're very excited about the return of post-game shows this season.
Yes, we are.
It'll be a combination of maybe some solo shows, maybe all of us, maybe just two of us. But nonetheless, it's going to be great over the course of a full season. And it's going to be great talking Blackhawks hockey on a more regular basis. So in order to make sure that you know when we go live, head over to YouTube, like, subscribe, hit that bell button. You'll know when Four Feathers Podcast goes live and all of our other great shows over at the On Tap Sports Network. And of course, head over to ontapsportsnet.com and follow along at Four Feathers Pod on the socials, wherever you catch your news and information. And of course, wherever you catch those podcasts as well, be sure to subscribe and leave us hopefully a 5-star rating. But if you want to give us constructive criticism, you can certainly do that as well. Gentlemen, this was a great show. Glad to be on the microphone with you guys again before we see Blackhawks hockey on Tuesday. And until then, what do you guys say? Let's go Hawks.
Let's go Hawks.
Let's go Hawks.